Hi, it's Miss Parrott, and welcome back to the AP Bio Exam Skills Series. In today's video, we are going to address the inevitable thought and feeling you'll have during the AP exam when you think to yourself, they never taught us that. Yeah, it's gonna happen. And this is why. AP Biology puts unfamiliar scenarios in the exam on purpose. You will see things you've never seen before. And that doesn't mean that your teacher didn't teach you. It means that they build in novelty on purpose. The AP Bio exam tests your biology skills, not just memorization of knowledge. And so knowing biology is necessary, but it's not sufficient. This video is going to be one of the most important videos in this whole series. So it's not just going to help us learn how to score more points, which it will, but it's also going to help us form habits of mind and heart as we approach new scenarios, unfamiliar things on the AP exam. And that's going to help us feel better just overall. So this will be you. But don't freak out. I'm going to give you some strategies. First of all, I want to teach you about the mastery shift. This is going from I know something to I can do something to I am fluent in that thing. What does that mean? So know means that you recognize concepts. Your teacher and you reading a book, you can get you here. Your teacher will help you get from know to can do, meaning you can apply this knowledge in familiar situations, like the lab in Unit 5 that's related to the Unit 5 content knowledge. But you will only be fluent, which is what the AP Bio exam is really testing, if you can apply this knowledge and skills in any scenario quickly, efficiently, with confidence and accuracy. So, it's important to remember that time studying will not, like if you just take longer looking at your book and highlighting stuff, that's not going to get you from know to fluency, okay? You will be ready, you will be here when you can perform confidently and efficiently under pressure. And that pressure is like time pressure. The AP Bio exam is going to measure your ability to transfer your skills from stuff that they know you should be able to do to a new scenario. And that's what biologists have to do all the time. So remember, this is the hope in this is that unfamiliar does not mean that you're unprepared. You have the skills. Now let's break it down into 4 strategies to help you make it through these unfamiliar scenarios. Okay, strategy 1 is to find the core concept. Ask when you're given this like page long, this like inevitably happens in like the first 2, the long FRQs. Almost always the first one, which is like, this is the first FRQ and I have no idea what's going on. But wait, you do. What unit does this have to do with? What process, what biological process, what cause and effect pathway is this related to? Because you may not know that exact species it's talking about or the exact gene or proteins that it's talking about, but you know like how ecosystems work, and you know how the central dogma of biology takes us from a gene to the expression of a trait. So if you can identify the scenario, or you can identify the core biology within the scenario, then you can act from that core biological knowledge instead of freaking out that you've never heard of this weird Latinized name. All right, don't forget, you have the tools. All right, once you've gotten down to that core biology, we can also look at strategy 2, which is anchor in the data. There's often a graph or a data set. You want to ask yourself, because there's going to be something that's asking you about, like, what's the dependent variable, what's the independent variable, what's the control. So ask yourself, okay, what is changing? What stayed the same? What are the controls? What's the trend that I'm seeing in my data? Anchoring in data is so much, even if it's unfamiliar data and you have no idea like what it's talking about, you can see like, oh, it is going up here, and then at this point it stops going up and starts to go down or starts to flatten out. So anchoring yourself in data is so much more important than panicking and freaking out. Panicking and freaking out on a test does zero good for anyone. Evidence-based reasoning, that's where points are earned. So if you can point to where in the data the change happened, or maybe actually think about, well, let me go back to my core biology and think about why that change would have happened, you're halfway there. So and speaking of the other halfway, just describing the pattern in the data, that's like a point. So you don't necessarily have to know why. A lot of times just describing the pattern is what the question is requiring. So that's good. All right, strategy number 3. Here, we want to predict the directional effects. So again, like, we may not know the exact gene or protein or like bodily function that the system is describing, like in this long FRQ, but we do know how certain biological pathways go, right? We know that if it's talking about a gene, well, we know how genes work, right? That the DNA codes for the RNA, and then from the RNA, we're going to get a protein, and that protein's going to do its function, and then we're going to get a phenotype or a trait, right? And so we can see if there's going to be a breakdown somewhere, because one of the FRQs inevitably is going to say, here's a situation, what if this breaks down, what's going to happen? And so you can predict that because you understand the direction of the flow of all genes. Or say it's an environmental change. So we're looking bigger picture biology. Some environmental change happens in this field of flowers, right? We know that environmental changes can impact survival. The organisms that survive will reproduce. And then you can sometimes see a shift in allele frequency or a change in evolution over time. And so, again, if you can remember the flow of how things connect together, you can predict what will happen if something goes down or something goes up or a disruption occurs. So even without specifics, you can know a direction. Example, so it may say, this thing changed and decreased enzyme activity. What's going to happen? Well, you just take, maybe you don't know that enzyme and you don't know the name. They're going to give you some long, annoying sounding giant biological molecule. It happens. And its products. But you just think, oh, wait, this is the reactant. These are the products that I need the enzyme for. If my enzyme doesn't work, whatever this crazy word is, I'm going to get less of that. Right? So you don't need to know the actual enzymes. You just need to know how enzymes work. Logical reasoning is so much more important than memorizing trivia. So this is really what you need to practice to go from can do, I can do it in a familiar environment, to fluency, right? The ability to do something quickly, accurately, confidently, and efficiently under time pressure. All right, strategy 4, the last one before we wrap up. Eliminate and regulate. So a lot of times on a multiple choice, right, you can easily, even if it's something you've never heard of, you can eliminate the biologically impossible answers. Like, there's some stuff that's just not true at all in any scenario ever because you know how biology works. And that's usually like 2 of the answers. Those are going to be gone. So if you're down to 2 good answers, you want to choose the best remaining claim. I do have a video on what to do in case you don't know what to pick. So check that out up here. But choose the remaining claim. That's your eliminate. And then this is the most important part. Regulate. Emotional regulation is as much of a test-taking skill as studying and knowing the content or being able to draw a graph. So when you start to feel that panic, that my teacher never taught me this, and your brain just starts to like go off down these defensive paths because you're starting to feel like unsure, remember, this is supposed to be unfamiliar. The AP course exam and description tells you there will be unfamiliar things in there. So you can just remind yourself, oh, this is that I see you unfamiliar thing. You don't scare me. I knew you were coming, and here you are. Then you can remind yourself, I am prepared with a skill set. I know how to predict, how to justify, how to explain, and how to identify, right? I know how to read a graph. I know what rates, different rates mean, and I can apply that. And then remind yourself that you don't have to know it all. There are years when kids that get a 5 on the exam, if you look at their like actual percentage score, it's like a 65. On a regular test, that would be a D. But because there's like a normal curve put on the scores after everyone's taken the exam, I won't even get into that. The highest bracket, those are your 5s, no matter what the actual raw score is. So you don't have to know it all to do well on this exam. Breathe. Do what you can do. Do what's in front of you, and then move on. Don't let yourself linger over what you're struggling with. You don't have time for that. You only have 90 minutes on each section. So remember, if all else fails, think like a scientist, all right? Just because something's unfamiliar does not mean it's impossible. Fluency, which is what the test is requiring you to do, is to be able to show up and answer the questions confidently, accurately, and efficiently under time pressure. You're more prepared than you think. Remember, you have strategies. You have a growth mindset. Maybe I don't know this yet, or I can't do this yet, but with AP style practice, I can be ready. Yes. Remembering that AP is seeing, can I transfer my skills to a new situation? Yes, I can. And do I have the tools? Yes. Yes, I do. I am more prepared than I think. If you found this video helpful, please do give it a like. For more AP Bio exam skills videos, subscribe to my channel. And if you'd like, please leave a comment or a question or even just an emoji down below to let me know that it helped. Teachers, check out my resources at Teachers Pay Teachers. My store is called Know and Grow with Gnomes. Keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you next time.